Nothing of this magnitude has ever happened in the United States. I can look out my window and see the skyline of New Orleans, and from where I sit, I can look in 5 miles in any direction and see nothing but empty houses. The process of rebuilding that economy is an unprecedented opportunity and challenge for the people in this area and for the country to help support it.
It's often been said that the U.S. media rediscovered its backbone in the days following the tragedy of Katrina, in the form of relentless and uncompromising questioning, outrage, and even a few on-camera tears. After traveling to New Orleans on behalf of McGraw-Hill Irwin just days after the storm and then again on the one-year anniversary, we understood why. Simply put, you cannot fully appreciate the horrific impact of Katrina unless you actually drive through those miles and miles of empty, devastated neighborhoods, 80% of a city that was literally drowned and is currently struggling to recover. This video will examine the rebuilding process from an economic standpoint. Capitalism is a great system for creating wealth where supply and demand dictate what gets produced and in what quantity. But it faces challenges like any other economic system in the face of wars and natural disasters, especially in the short run, as was seen during Katrina when the government was inexplicably slow to provide needed services as citizens were literally dying in the streets. In the long run, homes will be rebuilt, businesses will reopen, and jobs will be created. But at what cost? What will New Orleans look like 5 and 10 years from now? Should the government be doing more, or should the free market be allowed to run its course?
The city of New Orleans was built originally on the banks of the Mississippi River as a port. And that's why the United States wanted to acquire it in the Louisiana Purchase. On the north side of the city is Lake Pontchartrain, and surrounding almost the other 3 sides is the Mississippi River. The second part of it is that the city is a bowl, even more so since we built levees around the entire edge of the city to keep big water out. Means that it keeps the water in, as it did during the storm when the levees breached.
If it keeps on raining, levee's going to break. If it keeps on raining, levee's going to break. And the water gonna come and have no place to stay.
This port is still a major part of the city. The other major drivers of the New Orleans economy are tourism, shipbuilding, of course, the healthcare sector and things of that sort. The city had a fairly weak economy to begin with, and of course that has been devastated.
When discussing the economics of post-Katrina New Orleans, Professor Lane likes to break it down into 3 stages.
The first stage, which is the cleanup stage, is still going on in the city itself. There are tens of thousands of houses that still haven't even been gutted and cleaned up, but a lot of that has already gone on and had a fairly small impact on the local economy because it was really outside people that came in. The second phase is rebuilding. There may be as much as $61 billion coming into the New Orleans economy. We normally would spend about $1.6 billion per year in building. So that's over 28 years worth of building that will probably be going on in the next 5 years. Now, of course, it's not this regular economy. This is contractors, building supplies, things of that sort. It'll have a big impact, but it'll also be a temporary impact. Another issue is how much of that money is going to local people as opposed to carpetbaggers, if you will.
In addition to prospects for the construction industry, there are other industries that have already shown signs of recovery, including shipping.
It's come back to almost its pre-Katrina levels because we still need to ship out all that grain and going out and oil coming in from the rest of the United States.
The mining industry.
Mining, which includes oil production is booming. It's 118%. It's bigger than it was pre-Katrina. Not surprising given current oil prices.
And if you live in New Orleans, it's a very good time to be a car dealer,
because we lost hundreds of thousands of automobiles. If you go to New Orleans East, there's almost nothing open for miles and miles and miles. There's 3 new car dealerships that have been opening and running since about 2 months after the storm, which helps explain taxable sales. Taxable sales for the metropolitan area have been way above pre-Katrina levels. A lot of that is good, is helpful, because it gives the government some money to solve some of the problems that it had.
The tourism industry, however, faces several challenges.
We still only have about 60% as many flights into and out of New Orleans as we had pre-Katrina. Now, this causes enormous problems for us because convention business is a major part of our tourism.
The fact that casinos are booming in New Orleans is a surprising statistic until you realize who's actually doing the gambling.
Construction workers, FEMA workers in the town from outside the area, making more money than they usually make and looking for places to spend it.
Which provides us with a good segue for discussing wages and cost of living.
The wage rates for low-skilled workers have gone up tremendously. Burger King is currently paying $8.50 an hour starting wage plus $2,500 signing bonus. Well, then why don't these low-skilled workers come back? And the answer is they don't have any place to live. The rental rates have risen tremendously, on the order of at least 50 to 100% higher than before. One reason why we lost 1/3 of our student population.
As the one-year anniversary approached, probably the most surprising statistic centered around money allocated to help flood victims.
The people that own the businesses and the houses in the city of New Orleans, for the most part, have not received $1 in funds to help them rebuild. Many people didn't have flood insurance, and so they have no insurance. Their homeowners did not cover their damages. The other thing is the FEMA money. The federal government has given $6 to $7 billion to rebuild the housing stock. And the first office to open for people to apply for that money only opened like a month ago. And so not one check has been written from FEMA to help people rebuild their houses. Now, in the next year, a lot of that money is going to start flowing in. But people wonder why a year later very little has happened, and the answer is there's no money.
But you can see the typical New Orleans houses, and you find some that haven't been touched. Now here's somebody good at his house and trying to sell it.
The people that are rebuilding, the small business people that I know of, are pretty much doing it out of their own pockets, hoping that they'll get some more money later. One part of New Orleans that has gotten a lot of attention is the lower 9th Ward. Many people, because it was one of the hardest hit areas, many people are saying that shouldn't be rebuilt. But that doesn't respect parts of the culture of the city that people may not recognize. The lower 9th Ward is an area of fairly working poor people. But it's an area where you have 85% home ownership. These were small, very rather modest homes where working people live, but they own their own homes. They're strongly tied to the area. Many of those people have multiple generations of their families, extended families that have been in the same area for 100 years. So when you take that into account, there's a lot of those people that may not come back this year. But sooner or later, they're going to want to come back, and when they want to come back, they're going to want to come back to the lower 9th Ward. So if you understand the culture and the ties to the land that's kind of unique in this city, some things that may not make sense from sitting 100 or 200 or 1,000 miles away may determine which neighborhoods come back and which ones don't, beyond just kind of who's underwater and who's above water.
Ever had blues on your mind, blues on your troubles? I know I've had everything.
In terms of long-term changes, there's a number of questions. What's the New Orleans going to be like 5 years, 10 years from now? And the answer is nobody really knows. New Orleans is going to have to be rebuilt on the backs of small businesses. New Orleans has always been a small business city. We only have one Fortune 500 company in the city, Entergy, in New Orleans. We've had very little help from leadership from state and local and government agencies. In fact, the mayor's plan appears to be a free market plan. Let the free market rebuild. If you want to rebuild your house, do that. If you want to rebuild your business, do that. What that means is still unclear, because businesses to rebuild need to know that they have water and electricity that are reliable. There's other areas where the city has got to decide if it's going to be able to provide police and fire protection to all of these scattered out areas of the town. It's not clear they're going to. Clearly, there's some indication that because many of the lower income workers moved away, a lot of them, surveys of people in Houston, 60% of them say they're not coming back. It's a question mark because things like tourism industry depend upon low-wage workers. So there's some belief that maybe New Orleans may turn from a low-wage city, which is what we've historically done, to a much more middle-class city. That will be a change in the nature of New Orleans. The Orleans Parish School District, which is one of the worst in the country, has been totally destroyed. It's the new schools that are coming back are mostly charter schools. So there's a real opportunity that we can really upgrade the educational environment. So there's a lot of questions out there, and so it's going to be a cooperative effort. New Orleans will come back. It will be a vibrant city. It's one of the most unique cities in the United States in many ways. How many people are going to come back? What we're going to end up being is something that only time will tell.